Ryan, and welcome back to Youth Talks.
If everyone's comfortable, I'd like us all to share our pronouns and how we identify as part of the community. Oh, yes. My name is Victoria, and I go by she, her. And I say I mostly identify as queer. You could say bi, but I don't know. It's kind of just either or.
Okay, I'm Ryan. I also go by she, her, and I identify as a lesbian.
I'm Sofia. I use she, her pronouns, and I identify as a lesbian.
I am Muhamadou Coker. I go by anything. I am gender fluid, and I'm omnisexual, but I also go by queer because it's a lot easier to explain. When it comes to my gender fluidity, anything goes. I don't particularly care how I'm addressed. I always just say, just address me with respect. Just respect who I am as a queer person, and we're fine. But that's just how I am, not how everybody who is gender fluid is. So be mindful about that. Mm-hmm. And for my omnisexuality, it's just kind of like a version of pansexuality, even though it is different, where gender does play a role in attraction. But I just go by queer because it's a lot easier to explain all of that, and that's just how I am.
Okay. So the first things first that I want to get into, I know that everybody's story is different all over the world, but what was everyone's kind of coming out story? Sophia, would you like to start?
Sure. My coming out was pretty easy. I guess I mostly came out in 6th grade, which not everyone has the opportunity to do. Initially, I came out as bisexual, but just later came out as a lesbian. My parents were pretty welcoming. I would say the only struggle I had with coming out was I was pretty afraid to come out to my grandmother because she's very religious, but she was very open and vulnerable about her experiences with, I guess, queer identities.
I actually necessarily haven't come out to some of my family members, but some of my younger siblings know, my younger cousins know. Yeah. It's also, let's be honest, obvious. So there isn't much I can do about that. But coming out to my siblings and my the family members that I have come out to, it wasn't necessarily hard because again, it's kind of obvious. So it was just kind of a matter of fact thing. They just know that I am, and that's that. Yeah. And we don't necessarily talk about it. It's not because it's just that we don't. We just have other things too. It's oh yeah, you're queer. So what are we gonna do now? Right. We have other things to do. So that's mostly what it is. I was also out in school, which was also a known fact, but that's mostly it. I haven't come out to some of my older family members yet.
Okay, Victoria?
I think I came out to my mom. Well, first person I came out to was probably in I think 8th grade, and it was to my best friend, but I've known since 4th grade. I knew all the way back then. But I think I ended up coming out to my mom, was the first person in my family. It was very dramatic. It was during COVID. I was very she thought I had a deep, dark secret to tell. She thought something was wrong, and I just told her, and she was like, oh, that's fine. And I told my sister, both my sisters, my one sister is bi, so that was felt comfortable. Don't think I've ever explicitly told my dad, but he knows. It's nothing, again, in the same way, it's not that we don't talk about it because it's a bad thing, but it's kind of just you know what I mean? It's, yeah. And I mean, one of my great aunt, she has had a girlfriend for over 10 years. It's not something completely new to my family. So yeah.
Yeah, I would like to say mine's pretty similar. I came out to one of my best friends, maybe 8th grade, 9th grade, going into high school. And then it kind of was just I didn't really say anything to anybody, but I had a girlfriend here. I didn't really tell my mom or my dad, but they kind of just put 2 and 2 together. And my mom was like, it's okay to tell me. Yeah. And I was crying and sobbing. I just thought it was this thing that it's it just can't be said. But it doesn't have to be that way, if you know what I mean.
I also think kind of how we see it in movies and stuff makes it think it's such a big deal to come out, and you have to sit down your parents and be I'm gay, blah, blah, blah. And it's just not like that. I mean, for me, it wasn't. I think it's I don't know, I mean, my parent, my mom always did this, but my parents both, especially now, they're always oh, so is there any boys you like or girls? Or a little something like that. Yeah. And I think it's I don't want to go, I mean, I feel I don't want to go around saying I'm this way. I don't think I need to share that to everyone, but it's not something that I'm hiding.
Yeah.
So.
I think a lot Sophia, when I first came out, I came out as bisexual. And I kind of just got to the point where it was just like, you know what, maybe it's just not me. But I also went through that phase where it was like, who needs a label? Like, I'm, you know, if I'm happy, I'm happy. That makes sense.
It's interesting. My mom was actually the one to tell me that I was gay and not bisexual, which sounds weird, but it's because, you know, I've always been a very look to the future type of person, and I'm just really close and open with my family. I love my family. But I was just telling my mom about, like, when I look in my future, I just never see myself, like, being married to a man or really, like, anything with a man. Like, I have lots of guy friends, love them, but just, like, there's no romantic feelings. And she was like, have you ever considered that maybe you're a lesbian? Right. And I was like, I don't know, from that point, I was like, okay, that makes sense. I don't have to have this, I don't know, I guess, male focused side to it at all. I can enjoy being in the presence of men, but it doesn't have to be
romantic.
Yeah.
I feel like that's very much
I feel like that's just made my life so much simpler. And like, the thing is, if one day I do end up with a man, so what? Right. You know, like, I think the labels are supposed to work for you, and people are not constrained to being one way or another.
Yeah, I agree. So it kind of sounds like we all kind of discovered ourselves a little bit around the same time. And I was kind of going and transitioning into high school. So what was it like in high school? Did you kind of, like, when you introduced yourself, did you tell people? Did you experience hate for it? Was it uncomfortable? You know?
Is that fine if I go first?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I mean, again, it's kind of obvious if you hear my voice, my general demeanor. So what I will say is, when people first meet me, I mean, I kind of would tell them and would tell some people and wouldn't tell other people, and they just kind of figure it out. What some people would assume, which makes sense, is that I'm gay and cis, which I'm not. Which, again, it's, if you hear my voice or my general personality, it kind of makes sense that they would think that, but I'm not. So that's what I'd say. But aside from that, it was never really hard at school. I mean, was there like some slight hiccups here or there? Barely. But there's a large queer, there's a lot of queer students at the school, so it's not, so there was never much of an issue, and most of my friend group was queer. And if they weren't, they just didn't care. So it wasn't much of an issue for me, at least.
Sophia?
I would say that high school was a much easier ride for me than middle school, even though I was more, I'd guess, clearly out in middle school. You know, I was actually president of the Gay Straight Alliance, or Gender Sexuality Acceptance, they changed the name, in 8th grade. And like, in that role and in being known as like a lesbian or like as a part of the queer community in general, I faced a lot more bullying. But in high school, it's not been as much of a public part of my identity. I don't hide it, but I just don't introduce myself that way. So I haven't, and I think in general, with high school, people have figured themselves out a lot more. And I'm not around the type of people who are going to be making any comments about it. Because what are you doing, you know, walking up to me in the halls and slinging a slur at me? I don't even know who you are.
Right, yeah.
That actually did remind me of 2 times. One, the first time is actually kind of funny. I was basically just walking, it was like from like, I think, the LCs, and I was going into like the school building. Somebody, I don't know who this person was, just like came up to me and was like, are you gay? Are you gay? And was like, technically. Right. And then they were like, I like that for you. And then said something, I don't remember what exactly they said. And then I was like, you know what that's like? What that felt like? It's like whenever white people say, I would have voted for Obama a 3rd time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, why did you tell me that? I don't know who you are. I don't know why you told me that.
That's so Northwood.
Thanks. So another time it was at the bus stop. It was kind of someone being homophobic to me. I was just talking to my friend being the flamboyant queer person that I am. Somebody said something slick and I was like, who are you? And they basically were trying to come for me, like, in the bus, and I was like, don't try me. I'm crazy. Please don't. Crazy. Please. I'm just trying to go home. I'm just trying to be myself. Kiki with my friend. Please don't try me. I have other things to worry about than somebody in the back of the bus yelling things at me. Those are the only things that I distinctly remember. So, yeah. It wasn't particularly hard. I was just vibing.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say for me, like, I think now in the world that we're in, like, it's not like obviously that still happens, so it's not like someone comes up to you and like pushes you into a locker and is like, you're gay, that's bad. But like, I think it's more like in other ways than just like judgments. I mean, I've known that I was queer, or at least like girls in some sense, since I was little. Like, I've known it for a while, and my plan was like, I'm just not gonna tell anyone, like, ever. And it's kind of hard, like, being like that, and then also being like, just like seeing what happens to people around you. Like, I think in middle school there was only like a couple people who were bi or queer, and like it kind of makes you feel like you have to be a very specific kind of way. But honestly, like, I think as much as it's not as like in your face, like, I mean, my one of my closest friends is a lesbian, and she was once with her, like, a bunch of people, like, in class. They were just like walking in the hallway, and she was like, oh yeah, like, they were all talking about like boyfriends and like relationships, and she's like, oh yeah, like, I have a girlfriend, blah blah blah. And then the people were like, oh well, like, you can't say you're a lesbian yet, like, the people at our school are so, like, the guys at our school are so ugly, like, how could you know until you go to college? Like, kind of saying like you can't know that until like kind of saying like she doesn't know her identity because she hasn't like seen the right guy, or like enough of that. And I think that that's just kind of like that's more of how it happens, is those judgments and those like, oh, like, a girl, like, if you come out to someone, they'd be like, oh wait, did you have a crush on me? Like, oh, did you like me? And I'm like, no, like, it's not like that. Like, I don't like anyone I run into, like, just because I do like girls. But I think that's just like an interesting part. But I think, do you want to share anything?
Well, I've dealt with some of those like same accusations, like, oh, how do you really know? And it's like, you know yourself when you know yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need somebody to tell you who you are, what you have to experience to figure out yourself. And I've also had the same thing with friends, like, oh, have you ever liked me? And it's like, let's not do that, girl, not today. Yeah. But I think when it comes to like, I really wasn't out like that in middle school. Maybe like one friend kind of figured, but it wasn't this big thing in middle school. And when you were in the LGBTQ community, it kind of was like, an ill or like a shameful thing in middle school. Nobody really wanted to accept that until like 8th grade. In high school, now it's like, who cares? Like, you do what you want to do. And I can really appreciate that. But honestly, I haven't dealt with any like bullying or hate myself. I don't think it's very obvious that I'm a lesbian. Maybe other people think something differently unless they like see me with somebody. But I haven't really gotten any hate for it in high school from students, staff members, teachers, or just even like the outside world. But I know it's possible.
Yeah, I would say my experience with like, I guess, middle school harassment was often from like, I guess, straight guys. Yeah. And it would be like, they would yell like the F slur at a group of us, like just walking home. Or I guess the most prominent example is I was once again walking home, like, you know, if you're a walk home kid, you know, like, there's just people around always in your business. And just like really intrusive questions. This one boy, who I won't name obviously, just was asking me about like, and mind you, this was probably in like 6th or 7th grade, asking me like really intrusive questions about my like sexual habits, if I was like sleeping with this girl that people perceived as being trans, like things like that. Like, she was my friend, but not even that close of a friend, but just because they perceived us as both like, being part of the queer community. They have to be together. And it was not just like speculating. He was trying to make me feel scared. And I did feel scared because I was almost at my door. Yeah. But I would say like most of that stuff, like, you know, when you're walking with a group of friends and a group of boys like slings the F slur at you, it's kind of just ridiculous. Come on, I'm sorry, but you live in Silver Spring. You live in downtown Silver Spring. Like, buck up. You can't even see a group of people walking down the street together and you get mad about it.
I know, it's really silly. But the last kind of question I have, and it can be a quick answer if you like, but how would you guys, like, what's the solution? How would you guys deal with bullying?
Muhamadou, do you want to start?
I mean, I don't know. At this point, maybe just trying to spread more information when people are younger, to try to make it that way people are more used to it and understand that it's wrong. That way, as they get older, there's less of a stigma and they're more used to it. That way, it's like, oh, that person's queer? Okay, so where are we gonna go eat now? Exactly. That was just more of a matter of fact thing. Now let's go do whatever we're gonna do. Yeah. That way, nobody really cares. That's probably what I'd suggest, but at this point, there's not really much we can do for the people that are already stuck in their ways.
I mean, I think a huge part of it is like, it's a part of a lot of like queer people's identity, like them being queer, but I don't think it's like that doesn't make up all of them. And I think that's an important thing. I think education and exposure to it is some of the reasons, like that's probably a reason why I felt more comfortable to come out to my family, is because I have those representations. Because like I think it's hard. I mean, like we definitely live in a more progressive area. Like we definitely live where there's, I mean, like at our schools, like the fact that there's a GSA, like, or something like that, like that's just a difference that some people don't always have. And I think it's like, it's hard to like even think about how it could be so much like worse for people. But yeah, but thank you so much for this conversation. And yeah, really appreciate talking with you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.